Hi everyone, this is the update for yesterday, which was April the 5th of 2026. That, of course, is Easter Sunday. And, of course, if you happen to be somebody that celebrates Easter, hope you had a wonderful Easter. If not, um, hope you had a wonderful Sunday. That being said, everyone, I worked at the store, um, and it was 11 to 8. And this was a shift that went a lot better than I expected it to be perfectly honest. I was told back on Thursday when I agreed to pick up this shift that almost certainly I was going to get stuck doing a bit of supervisor time on this shift, and I may have mentioned a few times previously that that is not my favorite thing. I just did it for too long. And it's not fun for me anymore. I'm just burnt out on everything that can go on it. But to be perfectly honest, this time the shift was not bad. And the hours that I had to supervise were 6 to 8. And I had a couple of things going in my favor. One being that if there are some folks that think we're closed on Easter. As a matter of fact, a couple of times that I've worked the service counter on Easter, I legit have changed my phone greeting to "Thank you for calling" or "Name of store. We're open regular hours. How may I help you?" Um, and 3/4 of the calls would, "That's all I wanted to know. Thanks." Of course. So anyway, um, but it was an 11 to 8 shift and it was supervisor. And but we did have quite a few customers on Easter who don't think we're open. And another thing that we had going on for us yesterday is that it just so turned out that Easter Sunday was beautiful. It was a gorgeous day. We're talking a little bit above room temperature, mid 70s, sunny. And remember, I live in a suburb of Portland, where, the average overcast days a year is like 306 or something. So, beautiful sunny day on Easter. Hopefully, kids were able to have like outdoor Easter egg hunts and stuff like that this year. If they are, I'm happy for them. But yeah, Easter was a beautiful, beautiful day here in the Portland area. And, you know, it's, as a matter of fact, it was such a nice day that well, appropriately enough, I was talking yesterday about installing my little air conditioning unit, and I mentioned that I needed to go get tape for it. And so I did acquire the tape, and I got that stuff thing installed yesterday on Easter Sunday. And again, I typically have that installed from, you know, April through like April 1st through October 1st. And maybe I'll actually keep track of how many times I actually use it in a year. Because even though I have it plugged in, frankly, there are not too many days where it gets uncomfortable enough to actually use it. Um, I want to say last year, 30 ish days out of the 6 months. And so maybe I'll keep count, just out of curiosity's sake. Um, that being said, ultimately, the day that I'm filming this, because I'm actually filming this one on the 6th, one day after. Frankly, if I had been home during the hottest part of the day, may have actually kicked it on today. But as it was, I ended up working during the warmest part of the day, so ended up actually not needing it. But anyway, got that installed, and it's there and will be available to me for the next 6 months without any additional work on my part. So, the store. I mentioned that I had some supervisor time yesterday, but otherwise it ended up being kind of a mix of everything. I did carts for about an hour, spent quite a bit of time at self checkout, and like I said, then had a couple of hours of supervising. And again, this is one of those ones where afternoons that went quite smooth. Um, that being said, um, a day doesn't go by where I'm like even adjacent to supervisors where I don't hear things that make me really appreciate what superhumans retail supervisors can be. I fully admit I do not have the patience for some of the stuff that goes on. I just don't. I've mentioned that I actually was a supervisor for quite a few years, where that was like my main thing. As a matter of fact, I was a second assistant, or as our company would call it, a relief assistant, in checkout for several years as well. And I consider myself a compassionate person, and obviously, if you've been following this set of vlogs, I've had a lot of family stuff, and that's involved missing a lot of work and all this. I get it. Everybody has stories, absolutely. And that being said, there are some times where we might. Let's just say there are some times where everybody has stories. And there are some times that we're internally questioning the validity of said stories. And it can be incredibly frustrating when there are ones that you're like 99.95% sure are not the most legit. Because gaming the system does happen. Let's call a spade a spade. And dealing with stuff like this day in and day out is the main reason why I could not deal with being a supervisor as my main job anymore. I find myself losing all my empathy, and I don't want to be that type of person. And so, yeah. Supervisors are saints. All right. And, and it wouldn't be the Easter update, particularly my first video update on an Easter, without sharing my favorite Easter story of all time in 25 years of retail. And this happened actually my first Easter with the company. I was hired in 2001. This happened in 2002. And the location that I was at the time, our store was kitty corner from a Walmart. Okay? And the Walmart was just cleaning our clock when it came to sales volume. Well, so one evening, the night before Easter, which was like one of our top 10 busiest days of the year anyway, somebody calls in a bomb threat to the Walmart across the street. They shut down at like 7 or 8 o'clock. Our store ends up basically doing all their business plus theirs. Thank God I had that night off. Anyway, and I come in the next day, and my shift started at 4:30. And I clock in, and I go to my register, and I open up, and within 5 minutes, I have this guy. He's like 75 years old, and he starts screaming profanities even before I start his transaction. I mean, and loud. Within minutes, I have pretty much every manager in the store at my register, and he is just screaming, dropping every F-bomb, every curse imaginable, middle fingers flying, threats going all over the place. And, ultimately, the cops get called. And he gets pulled out of my register by the cops. The only time that's ever happened in 25 years of retail that I've had somebody from my register yanked out by the cops. Here's what his complaint was. Because we had been closed Walmart had been closed the night before, we got all their business. We were sold out of all Easter stuff, so he couldn't get his markdown after holiday candy. That was it. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll talk.